Yes, yes. Merry New Year. Yes.
Meta New Year.
What you know?
That's
What you
wild.
know about that trading places? Merry New Year. Yes, that's the joint with him sitting there with the fake dreads on the train. Oh, they will beating himself with the fly swatter. Yeah, what's up? Merry New Year. Man,
Yo, I
Eddie
thought you was
Murphy was
talking about
crazy.
Meta, like Facebook.
Oh no, I didn't even think about. I'm thinking about Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd and trading places.
Yo,
I don't
that's
care
funny.
about no better. You know what I'm saying?
Meta
Meta
cares
better have
about
my
you.
money. You know what I'm saying? 100%, baby. We got some truth that y'all can't handle tonight. I just want to make sure you know. Be on my
You
bro
know what? You
trying
know
to tell
what?
you.
We haven't been doing. I'm Curt Kennedy. He's Strack the Wolverine.
Now we do
We
that.
here at the
We'll
end.
do
Yeah,
it
at the end.
at the
But
end.
the
We do it at the end.
introduction, we missing the
Well,
intro.
that's the thing, man. That's what happens when you go when you're doing it live like this. It had
Yeah,
there's things you got to sacrifice. So
yeah. We're
all
gonna have to
that's
shoot a
there.
generic one then, or I'm just gonna have to go back and pull the old one back into the
Right.
podcast for the listeners, just the listeners.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back to the grill again. The grill
Grill
again.
again.
You know what I'm saying? We thank y'all for watching and hanging out. Oh man, it is Turkey Day Eve, my
Hold
G.
on, if we back to the grill again, are you MC Search and I'm Nas? I think I like
We can
that.
do that. We can do that. We can do that. You know what I'm saying? I could be a chubby white dude with glasses. We could do that. We need a posse. This is when they used to do the WAP a lot. You need a posse to rock down. Y'all know, but man, beat your chest if you know about the WAP. Man, y'all know about the WAP, man.
Yeah, that's
Let me
funny.
find out, man. Listen, Merry New Year.
Meta New Year. Whatever
Pre-Turkey
that
Day Eve,
means.
bro. Happy Turkey Day. I'm
Yes.
not saying Thanksgiving because I'm trying to be politically correct. I'm trying to be so.
What?
Thanksgiving is Plymouth was the settlers came and killed everybody and then killed turkeys and then celebrated as a holiday. So I'm just going to say Happy Turkey Day because that's what we was doing anyway. They just wanted to toss some turkeys, man. So this
Yo,
is it,
just
man.
be
This is it.
thankful.
Yeah, just be. I mean, that's true, and that doesn't
Word up.
require a holiday, right?
Word up.
Like I don't get into the national holidays. I'm trying to get Thanksgiving every day, right? I'm trying to be grateful every day for what the Lord has done, not just
Amen.
on like the fourth Thursday of November, right?
Amen.
I'm not trying to
Amen.
celebrate the resurrection on the second Sunday of April. You know what I'm saying? Like
Amen.
it's all that's there,
But
right?
the
So we
food
try to
is
do that.
special on that day, though. The food is
Hey,
special, at
but
least for
listen,
for a lot of people.
listen, listen. Norm was popping, baby. You
What
know what
up,
I'm
Norm?
saying? The OG Norm, you know what I'm saying? Norm, we got some music for you, my
Yes,
brother.
sir.
You're gonna be doing some reviews real soon, right?
Yes, sir.
We got the OG Norm on the Patreon posse. My posse's on Patreon. Dun, dun, dun. All right, man. So it is Turkey Day Eve. And as we talked about just a moment ago, there's always there's the holiday and then there's the everyday, right? So this is the
Right.
holiday because you don't get that food every day. Now you're blessed because you got, y'all can make something at the restaurant. Me, I'm like this. Hey, can I get a number 5, no pickles with? So I don't got
The
the
sweet tea.
luxury, the sweet tea, the large sweet tea. That. All right, so it's Turkey Day, man. What are y'all cooking up, man? What are you looking forward to tomorrow
I'm
in
fully
terms of
convinced.
food?
I'm fully convinced that when I go to my family's crib, we have the best meal in the entire world. So
Whew.
I'm looking forward to all of it. I mean, from
Yeah,
my
that's a that's
mom's
a bold
rice
that's a bold statement,
to
my
listen,
brother.
listen, anybody comes and eats at my parents' crib tomorrow would be
Mm,
inexpressibly happy and joyful. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Real rap. From the sweet corn to the rice and beans to the turkey to the
Oh,
pernil to the cranberry sauce to the stuffing to the
uh,
pastelong.
I
You
don't know if
know,
you can get with that mom spaghetti from Eminem though, boy. I
hey,
don't know.
bump mom spaghetti, man.
Right.
Word up.
We don't care about
Eminem
no
ain't
Eminem
got
around
nothing
here.
on this, man.
Yeah,
Word
now I'm with
up.
you, bro. I'm with you, man. It's some dishes. I tell you what, man. Nobody puts it in like mom, man. My mother holds it down.
That's how it is, right?
My mother
Across the
been the
board,
main
yeah.
cooker for Thanksgiving for the last 20 something years. My
Mm.
grandmother used to cook and my mother would help her out. But then at some point, man, my grandmother, Nana, was like, Nana, this flavor is tasting more like Flavor Flav. What are we doing right now? You want, that's
It's a little
grandma.
charcoal. It's a little
Mm.
charcoal.
It's just some, what's the do that was like this, dropping a little bit. It's like, Nana, this joint needs a little bit of herb. It was like, man, what's going on? So my mother took over at some point,
Word.
and mom, moms can't hold it down. So it's
Mom
just
Deuce
been
was
that.
like, fight the power.
And my wife, I love my wife. My wife is great. My wife doesn't have the propensity to cook as much. So definitely it's not like, oh, let me learn these. That's just not her thing, and I'm cool with that. So,
Right.
but while my mom is here, I want to utilize that before she goes home to be with the Lord. So I told her, Ma, you can't. I need the recipes. I'll
Right.
try these things. You can't go home
You can't
and
take
leave
this
me
with you.
here
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
some of this. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I
Right.
need that. And my mother still. Now anybody can happen anytime, but I'm looking forward to the corn pudding. You know what? I don't even got to say nothing. If I just say corn pudding, that's it, baby. I
That's
mean, that's
it.
it.
That's it. My mom
That's
make
it.
major bomb sweet corn, boy. That joint is no joke. Woo!
Woo-hoo-hoo.
With the arroz con gandules on the side, yeah, put together.
See, that's me. That's me getting ready to have a Scooby snack.
Yeah,
That's the
word
Scooby
up.
snack joint right there. I'm trying to get on that right there. Now I'm looking forward to it. Thanksgiving and then leftovers. I love it. We get the ham. My mother makes salmon. We can do a little bit of turkey, but we actually don't even do turkey. Like we do salmon, ham. She got the corn pudding. She got the macaroni. Right? She got
Yeah,
that joint. The broccoli. She got the. I'm not really a gravy guy. I'm not a gravy guy, but I'll
but you
put a
gotta
little
have a
bit of it
little
on.
bit on Thanksgiving. A little.
I put a little bit on. But I mean, man, listen, I'm looking forward to that. Unfortunately, my kids got a little bit of the sickums.
Mm.
They don't got the bud, but they got the sickums. So my mother was like, man, I don't want y'all. I'm gonna pick the food up and bring it back to the house. So
That's
I
what you
said,
did last year, right?
yeah, man, because of COVID was in full swing. So
Right.
moms was like, man,
Right.
you come pick it up. My mother's in the 70s, man. She don't want to be dealing with, she can't. It's different. So I was like, all right, mom, I'm
I
cool
feel
with
you.
that. So I'm gonna go pick it up, bring it back. But on Christmas, we're gonna go over there and chill at her joint. So and do that.
Nice.
So, but I'm excited, man. It's Turkey Day. I'm looking forward to that. One thing about Turkey Day I never worry about.
What?
You know how some people be like, man, I'm gonna have to go to the gym and like work all them pounds I'm gonna put on. I just never worry about that. Cause
Oh,
that's just
really? Get
that's
out
just
of here.
you know what I'm saying? That's just a day in the life, my G.
That's not your New Year's resolution?
That ain't my New Year's resolution, man. That was my New Year's resolution 10 years ago, man. I don't want to hear that, man. As a matter of fact, many of y'all got New Year's resolutions that y'all don't keep. I
From
know
10
people
years
that can
ago.
stop smoking anytime they want to. I can't tell. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, listen. I know we're Marvel people over here, right? Marvel. Oh, first of all, hey, did you see this joint on Netflix called Red Notice with The Rock and Gal Gadot, the girl who plays Wonder Woman, and Ryan Reynolds?
Yes. Yes, I did. Yeah,
What
I
you think
did.
of that joint? Did you like that joint?
It was fun to watch. Yeah, wifey and I
Yeah,
watched it. We enjoyed it.
yeah. And you know what, man? You know what I noticed about certain actors, right? This is what I noticed this. Ryan Reynolds is one of them. He almost plays the same character in every movie.
Very
Think about it.
similar. Yeah, very
Doesn't he
similar.
play almost the same? He almost plays that kind of snarky,
Yep.
uh, quick-witted, just sort of sarcastic. He plays that same character, bro. In
Yeah.
almost every.
Have you noticed he cannot suppress his hatred for God? Have you noticed it in his
Yeah,
acting
yeah,
and in his
yeah,
words, the things he
yeah,
says? He's
yeah.
always coming at Christianity.
Right, always, bro.
It can't be written into his script every time. Like, come
Nah,
on. You
bro.
know what I'm
That's
saying? Like
him.
this.
That's him.
Yeah, exactly.
That's him taking the day. You know who else? Even though he's one of my favorite actors, you know who else plays like almost the same role in every movie? Al Pacino, bro. Al Pacino. Listen, he's one of the Don Corleones. That's my dude.
Right.
Scarface, all of it, all of that. Hey, we were in the army in Cuba, man. All of it, right? But he plays almost the same role in every movie. That kind of like on edge, angry type
Yeah.
old dude. That's just kind of it's almost the same joint, man. It's like these
I think it's
movies.
because it's himself. It's probably himself coming through in every character. Like he
Right.
just can't help it. It's just
Or I
it's the way
just
it
think
is.
they just choose roles and that's what he does. And he just
That
gets
fit
the
him.
same
Yeah.
joint.
Yeah.
It fit him. So having said that, Hawkeye, right? I'm a Marvel dude. You're a Marvel guy. I'm a Marvel dude. Hawkeye, first 2 episodes out. I actually thought it was coming out on Monday on the 29th. And then I found out, no, it came out today.
Yeah.
2 episodes today, first 2 episodes. Me and my son looked at each other like, what? Hawkeye? Because me and
So
Santiago,
y'all
we
be
watching
watching that
shows.
tonight.
Oh, we might. Probably not tonight, but probably tomorrow. We'll probably watch it tomorrow because my family, we tend to watch movies, but me and him watch shows. We'll probably watch it tomorrow. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited. You know what I'm saying? So I haven't seen it yet, but it looks good. All the Marvel shows been decent. I did think Wanda was a little bit like, it was okay. And then obviously, and I thought Loki, I just didn't bang with it as much as people did.
Okay.
Like it was cool, but I felt like it was so much of like this weird love story about Loki that I was like, man, I'm not trying to, I'm not attracted to him, man. I don't want to see him being some romantic. I want to see some action, man. It was just a little weird to me a little bit at times.
Did you peep King Richard?
King Richard, did I peep that? No. What was that about?
That's the joint about the Williams family, Serena and Venus Williams and the
Oh
Pops.
no, that's right. I was thinking of Knights of. I'm thinking of King Arthur. I'm thinking of that.
If you ain't see that joint, you sleeping, fam. You sleeping.
That joint tough?
Yeah, it's good.
King Richard?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh man, I gotta see it then. You know,
Will Smith did his thing on that joint. Had me too.
You know what? I had actually planned to see it, but because he's been talking some crazy stuff in the media about.
Yeah, he's a little.
I was just like, man, I ain't trying to listen to this. I ain't trying to watch this dude right now.
He's a little loopy, but he still can act, and he killed that role.
He killed it. All right, I might watch that tonight, bro. I might watch it after we do this.
He killed that role, and I think it'll even be good for the family to watch together. Real rap.
Like, it's one of them joints. Okay, so it's kind of
a movie like that.
Okay,
yeah. Yep.
Bet we might watch it tomorrow then. We might just eat Thanksgiving dinner together and watch a movie tomorrow because
there's a lot of life lessons in that joint.
It's right. Good. That joint is on what? HBO Max or something?
Yeah, HBO Max. Yep.
I got that joint. Yep. Back. Well, look, Strack, I'm excited, man. Listen, 114 and counting. You know what I'm saying? Bro, do you realize we are just two people away from 116? we are 2 people away from being the new 116 click, famo.
And we unashamed of that joint.
Unashamed. Man. You know what I'm saying? We 114 unashamed. You know what I'm saying? First of all, we appreciate it. We just started this channel not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, and we don't do a lot of super promo for it. Even when we do the show, we're still so used to being in sort of audio world, podcast world, that we don't be like, hey, hit the subscribe button, like the channel, leave it. We don't do that. And I sometimes forget to do that until I watch somebody else's channel and they do that, right?
And you're like, dang.
I forget to do that on our joint. So let me say this, man. We got 114 subscribers. You got to start somewhere, right? Everybody crawls before they walk. So we crawling right now, and we thank you, those of you who are subscribers. We appreciate you. We got some stuff coming, you know what I'm saying? All that, you know, we doing all that. We doing it. You know, this is how I work out. This is when you fat, you work out like this. You just stay in your chair and just bop. That's how I do it.
I know 114 might not sound like much in cyberspace, but if I rode up on your hood with 114 people behind me,
that'd be tough.
A problem. You know,
be a problem, bro. It'd be a real
give
problem.
Respect where respect is due. We here.
Cross-examine
114.
So listen,
be the 116.
The 116, the new 116 clip. You know what I'm saying? 116 on the grind. What did J. Cole say? 100 mil and I'm still on the grind. We 114 and we still on the grind, baby.
Word up.
That's how we do it. Now, in all honesty, we appreciate you. We know that like we're all inundated with tons of reasons to watch things and information. There's a lot of people who are way smarter than us, better looking than us, more entertaining than us. And the fact that we have anyone that would subscribe to us is amazing. And we mean that for real. So we thank you for the 114 subscribers. But please, 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 and I'm only saying it because this is how people say it. And to be honest, me and Strack ain't really begging y'all to do this. But in reality, like, please hit the subscribe button. Like the channel, like the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps share what we're doing and all that stuff. So
yeah.
All right, Strack, we're gonna get into this old school lyric of the day. Now, me and you come from an era of hip hop where it actually was good. No, I'm just playing, but it was different. It was a different era of hip hop.
You're not playing. You're not playing. Stop playing.
You're not playing. Just me looking at myself on the screen.
Yeah. The
All right, so we come from an old school era. So we're gonna do old school lyric of the day. Each of us got one. So I'm gonna start with my joint, and then you do yours. I'm gonna take y'all back. Y'all know, but I'm gonna take y'all back to the late 1980s to a group called the Jungle Brothers. When they came like this, entertainment man from the motherland. And see, they call me a star, but that's not what I am. I'm a jungle brother, a true blue brother, and I've been to many places you'll never discover. Hey, the beat used to crank. The beat used to crank. It used to be like this. So the Jungle Brothers were a part of the native tongue that was also connected with like De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. They were kind of the brother, Black Sheep. They were kind of the brother of that group, but they didn't really blow up as much as some of the other groups did. But I used to remember their joint, Straight Out the Jungle. Da, 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 da. So that used to be the joint. You know what I'm saying?
Straight Out the Jungle.
Straight Out the Jungle. Old school lyric of the day, Jungle Brothers, Straight Out the Jungle. All right, Strack, what you got?
I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. That's it. That's one of the hardest bars of all time, man. Real rap.
Hey.
When you talk about hip hop, when you talk about, the legacy of hip hop and the hustle behind hip hop, like the hunger, Nas saying I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death was like, fam, this dude's always ready. He's always awake. He's always alert, ready to hustle for what's next. It was a major bar. You know what I'm saying?
It's almost crazy, and the beat was just hard.
It's still thought of today. Anytime you go to sleep, fam, if you a hip hop head, you thinking I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death, and you convicted by the spirit of Nas. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Listen,
going to sleep.
That was a hard bar, bro, back in the day.
Hard bar.
To give it more context, and I was just like, it drops deep like the words of my breath. I never sleep, because sleep is the cousin of death. I mean, that joint was just crazy.
It drops deep like the words of my breath.
Damn. I never sleep.
I totally should have said that joint.
Yeah, that's why I was like, what happened to bar? You got to give us, man, forget that Jay-Z, you only get half a bar. You got to give us the whole joint. Now, that's from Nas, that's from Illmatic, first album, New York State of Mind. Crazy. I still think Nas had the greatest 16 of all time. I still give Nas the greatest 16 bars of all time on that verbal and the chorus, the purple tape.
Gotcha.
Only built for Cuban links. That's, to me, the greatest 16 of all time was that. And then number two.
You mentioned that before.
Yeah. And then number two, we're gonna hit that back again, the top 5 greatest 16s of all time, mine and yours. Number 2, Expect the Deck. I mean, that Triumph joint, that just abomatomically, Socrates' philosophies and hot prophecies can't define how I be dropping these mockeries, lyrically perform all robbery, flee with the lottery, possibly they slaughter me. But I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't know why his solo career ain't do nothing, but that whole... he opened that... He man, I don't know if anybody else could hang after that. I was like, oh, man, they're going to be struggling.
I got some theories about Deck's career and why his solo career didn't take off. I got some theories. We could dive into that at some point.
Yeah, we should dive into that.
It has to do with his sound, man. His sound was way more Queensbridge type sound.
Right. Yeah.
Real rap. Like it was more like a Nas, a AZ, them type cats. If you would have hit him with that, I think Deck would have taken over the industry on a solo tip.
Yeah.
Real rap.
Yeah, nah. So we y'all are on the same time as the basement tonight. Hey, listen, famo. Don't worry about it.
Word up.
We're a better podcast in the basement.
We on top because we not in the basement. You know what I'm saying?
We're a better podcast. Stop playing. It's like, those are our dudes, man. We love them dudes. Los and Cooley, that's family right there. Listen, both of our podcasts can be seen beyond this, right? So we're live right now, but obviously when the live video is finished, this will be on our Facebook page and the YouTube channel. So go to Curt Kennedy's Corner as a YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. We would love that. But you can also watch it again. So feel no malice, man. If you want to watch The Basement, go watch The Basement. They got a great podcast. They probably talking about something better than us anyway. You can come back and check us out later. You know what I'm saying? And they not talking about something better than us, but I'm just trying. Those are the homies. I gotta say that. All right, man. Let's get into the reality of the situation. Now, off the old school lyrics. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I expected this, but this just in: Ahmaud Arbery killers found guilty.
Word.
Guilty. Now, I think, let's just be honest, bro. Based on what we knew of the case, if these dudes had been found not guilty, Rome was going to burn.
Yeah, I think I might have been out there riding for that one.
I would have been like, come on, fam. Like really, y'all doing too much right now.
Yeah.
Like this is a blatant. And you know what? I know we're going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse in a second. His interview, particularly on Tucker Carlson. But you know what? We've said this before. This isn't new. What I'm about to say, right? But I think people don't really understand. We watch these court trials in different ways. Like we watch them from different lenses, right? Some people watch these court cases as individual moments with individual sentencing and individual reactions, and then they do that, right? A lot of people, particularly I think black people in particular, not all, right, but I think a lot of black people watch these court cases through the lens of a mosaic. Like we don't watch these as like isolated incidents where this happened to this person. I think a lot of black people tend to watch these and evaluate them through a much larger lens of injustice towards us, right? We talked about this before. This is why OJ, when he was, I know most of the dudes I know, I was in the hood when OJ was on trial. Everybody thought he did it. The only reason why we celebrated was because a black man beat the system, and that was so unusual, right?
Yeah, that's real rap. Yeah,
that was so unusual. So when we watch these cases, some people, and this is where I think stupid stuff like white privilege gets thrown around, like, oh, you have the luxury of it. But on one level, these cases get watched by different ways. I think people don't understand that. Like I'm watching this, seeing, is this going to happen again? Is this going to be another situation where it seems clearly obvious that this person should be fill in the blank, prosecuted, all of this stuff, and then it goes the other way, right? So, ironically, though, there were some cases where the black dude who shot and killed a police officer was just the other day. I forgot his name, man.
Yeah, I saw two cases like that.
A couple cases, yeah. They just it was let off. But I wasn't surprised to see the Arbery case found guilty. I think, honestly, bro, based upon what we saw, I don't think there's no other video that could have. I don't think there's nothing you could see from the video. It could be a different verdict. I mean, this dude was running away from them. These dudes had guns and they went off. So, were you surprised at all?
Not at all. No, this was, well, let me put it like this. I'm never surprised today by things that occur as it refers to justice, and then
right.
Because we just never really know the way things can go. I mean, something might be clearly obvious for us, and somebody in the powers that be might sway it for whatever reason. So I'm never really surprised, but I was glad. I'm glad when I found out that they were found guilty for what they had done. I think what they did was clearly wicked. They hunted down and murdered this young man.
100%.
And they deserve to go down for it.
No, they do. And now I'm going to say this because this is going to kind of touch on what we're going to talk about in relation to this episode's title, Stop Cherry Picking, right? But one of the things I thought was interesting was when this story came out, a very big name theologian, tweeted this. So, big social justice event blows up on social media based on partial facts. Meltdown, screaming, etc. I go, in 1 month, the narrative will change because more facts will be available. Proverbs says that is wisdom. Social justice warriors say that is white privilege. He gets responded to by another very popular conservative. This guy's a conservative uh, theologian or pastor, and he says this: one thing won't change. Just like every past situation like this, those public figures who tweet out false narratives and make false accusations will never withdraw or apologize for them. So the first tweet was on May 9th, 2020, and the second tweet was on May 10th, 2020. They were talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case, basically saying that when more information comes out, it will be clear.
What will be clear?
That there was all social justice warriors overreacting, reacting to initial things and not the actual facts of the case. That when the facts come out, I mean, he said, in 1 month the narrative will change because more facts will be available.
What facts? I mean, this has been out now for how long?
Right.
Like,
so this is what I hope. I hope these dudes apologize to them. Because don't criticize one side and say that they're just drumming up that and you don't apologize. You said, and I think this is part of the problem with, this is what I mean about, and we're going to get to this, but this is part of the problem of these types of cases where believers are so dogmatic about what they think and so against that they think they can't be right, that they tweet stuff like this with the confidence that in a month the narrative will change. Basically saying that Ahmaud Arbery was guilty somehow. That's what he's getting at. I mean, by the narrative, that the narrative will change a month from now, that Ahmaud Arbery would actually deserve to get killed, and now these men were found guilty a year and a half later.
yeah,
This is why you gotta hush your whole mouth up. Like, you gotta be careful when you talk like this. You know, stop them Twitter fingers turning the trigger fingers. Like, you gotta hush your whole mouth up, all of it,
your
not
whole
just
mouth,
the whole boca, because this is just flat out wrong. And I hope these dudes have some measure of integrity and apologize as people are drawing attention to the fact that they said that, because that belittles justice, in my opinion, when you arrogantly assume that what you thought was the truth was the truth. No, sirree, Bobino. So these men are found guilty. I think that should. I'm sure people still gonna have a problem with it, though. You know, I will say that we live in the age of entitlement, right? So everyone's entitled to their emotions, their perspective, and all of that stuff to be true. And I'm sure there are gonna be some people who still find something against it. I don't know. I didn't hear what the actual sentencing was. Usually they separate the sentencing from the verdict. So I don't know how much time these guys are going to do. Now, it would be different if these guys get like 4 or 5 years, or manslaughter, you get 7 years. It's like, nah, fam. These dudes should get 20 to life, 15 to life. 15 on the light end.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
They hunted down an unarmed man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. And then that spills over to, obviously, the Kyle Rittenhouse story. He was acquitted last week. Many people are offended and upset still at Kyle Rittenhouse. So he did an interview with Tucker Carlson, and I would be curious to know if his interview changed anybody's mind about the kind of person this kid is. So I know you saw an interview. You saw one that I saw, but I saw some other, a little bit more footage than you. What did you think of the interview? Huh?
Did it change yours?
My opinion of Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah.
So what did you think my opinion of Kyle Rittenhouse was? Because I don't ever remember saying nothing. So I'm curious.
I don't think you ever made it clear where you stood on Kyle Rittenhouse. But I think I assumed, based on certain things that were said, that you viewed him to be an overzealous, person who was out there trying to do things he shouldn't have been doing. Which is pretty much my opinion.
Yeah. So listen, I remember the video footage of Kyle Rittenhouse. I remember it when it happened. I remember a dude running at him, a dude clubbing him with a skateboard. He was on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that kid. I saw him run. Like, who runs away from when you got an AR-15, bro? That's when you like, I am the Terminator. I will, man, you're not running. So the fact that he was running for his life, holding the equalizer, I never run. Kumo D, I never ever ran from the Ku Klux man, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man. I never ran with a gun in my hand unless it was police, because it was usually illegal when I had a gun back in the day, right? But I didn't run because I was afraid. I was like, you gonna run from these bullets. Watching that, I always thought that this dude defended himself. Like, I would have done what he done in the same situation.
Right.
I would have busted. The issue, I think, that I just thought, I think it was foolish to go. I don't care how much you care about. You're 17. You've never used that gun in any real live action. You've only shot at cans in the rural parts of Wisconsin with your buddy. So at best, you know how to point, aim, and maybe hit a target, but you've never been under pressure. Like, that was day 2 of a chaotic riot, bro.
Right.
And I get that. And I don't know what you thought you would accomplish as one man at 17 years old. I don't know what he thought. But the wisdom of Kyle Rittenhouse was not on trial. Mm-hmm. If it was wisdom, should he been there, then he'd have been guilty, because it was foolish to do that. Mm-hmm. But I always thought that he defended himself, and I never had any emotional connection to this case at all. I just I could not believe, like, why are people tripping off of this? Like, this dude.
So
like,
did the interview change your opinion?
It did. It changed my opinion of. Well, it did. You know what? It didn't change my opinion of him. I got to know him better as a person.
Got you. Yeah.
Because who's heard him talk? Right. I mean, if you don't know him, you've never heard him say a word. He's just he's just a young boy with a round face. You know, I can relate to him because I got a round face. So it's just like I got to know. I feel like I got to know him a little bit better, and I actually have compassion towards him because he's a kid. Mm-hmm. And the culture is so hell-bent on anger and idolatry and violence that they would want harm to this 17-year-old kid. Right. And when you hear him talk, you realize, man, this is a kid. He's 3 years older than my son.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it made me just hope that the Lord protects him physically. And it also made me hope that he gets money for some of the defamation of character things that he did.
I'll tell it does speak well of his character, some of his aspirations, some of the things he desired to do, like wiping graffiti off walls and, bringing first aid to people. He just
to everyone too. It wasn't like just one side. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
The dude said, I support Black Lives Matter.
He did on the internet.
Tucker Carlson just skipped over that. That Bama said, like, in another part of the interview that I don't think you saw, this dude said the justice system is corrupt and he supports Black Lives Matter because there is a history of prosecutorial overreach. Those were his words. This Bama is for prosecutorial overreach. Right. Like, I'm sure he had and when he said his interview had people who made him a hero say, oh, he's no longer. They cut him up because he was like, oh, he's with those guys. Yeah. People that were like defending him were angry at him after that Tucker Carlson interview because you realize this kid is no white supremacist who was out there trying to pick. First of all, he killed 3 white boys, but he wasn't trying to do. He was out there really just as a kid. He would have been out there if it was nothing but white people out there doing stuff.
But that's why you're asking the question as to whether or not it changed people's minds about him or their opinions about him. Because when I asked you, I think it was the right answer, really, because you had no emotional attachment. You weren't attached to him. But there's many who have attached their ideologies, their political and religious ideologies, to him, and basically have developed their opinion about him based on their presuppositions that are wrapped up in their worldview.
Which you saw Tucker Carlson doing that a lot in the interview.
Exactly.
He was leading him with stuff like, just
unfairly, propelling this young boy, this young man, to a position of, heroic, being our hero or our forerunner, for this movement, whatever you want to call it. Whether you're on the other side that's opposed to the movement of, conservatism or whatever, or
Yeah,
even or
conservatives.
the movement of conservatism itself upholding this young man for way more than he's actually ready for.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. No, he at best, Kyle Rittenhouse is a Greek tragic story, right?
right?
Where like he goes in to try to be a hero and he ends up not becoming one. Oh, he's only a
Right.
hero in a very cultic, sort of dark comedic sense, right? He's not really a hero in the sense where he went in and saved the day. He
Hmm.
went in there and was over his head,
Yeah.
right? He was over his
Yeah.
head, and then he put his gun over his head and
I
squeezed,
mean, I
right?
think
So
if he was to self-examine, in a mature way, probably beyond his years, but if he was to self-examine and think about whether or not his actions were heroic, he would have to compare how many people he helped and to what capacity, to what level of help did he bring them,
right,
in comparison to the three people he shot,
yeah, one hundred
and two
percent.
of which have died. So were his actions actually heroic or maybe more damaging? You know.
Well, I think the thing is, it's funny how people think heroic because this is where it's really interesting. Does someone deserve to die? Like, so we have all these conversations, right, about the death penalty. People have these conversations.
Hmm.
Does someone deserve to die because they have a criminal record? And then at what point does that criminal record? Now remember, let's assume that America's supposed to be a Christian nation, right? How do you think about a criminal record? Because this is what people do. Well, this guy was a rapist, he was this, he was that, he was three horrible people. It's
Right.
like these are people. A lot of us are horrible people. In all honesty, like
I
criminal.
mean,
Not some of
according
us
to
don't have
Romans
it.
3, we're all
We're
horrible
all
people.
horrible people. There's only been one good person, which is Jesus,
Right.
right? And so,
Right. Right.
so again, this idea that they deserve to die, and you talk about their criminal histories. Now, I think they deserve to die because they did what they did. I mean, you came at the dude, you threatened to kill him. One dude
Right.
had his gun pointed at him. I mean, I would have shot you. It would have been, I
I mean, they
shot
put
you, right? It would have been
if you're attempting to take someone else's life, you're putting your own life at risk. That's you're
one hundred
willing to
percent,
exchange
one hundred
your own
percent.
life for
Yeah,
your attempt at taking theirs. That's
100%.
just real rap. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's fascinating when you see media highlight the person's history so that people don't, and they don't realize what they're doing. If I show you a history and this guy has a criminal record, and then I make you think, well, he deserved it, you don't just compartmentalize that for that person, right? You think everyone who has a criminal record or people
Right.
who were
Right.
in the prison system, they deserve it as well. So what that does is it erodes compassion for you to even want to preach the gospel to these people because they deserve hell. They deserve punishment. They don't realize what's happening. This is one of the
Yeah.
schemes of the devil. They don't realize what's happening. Like when you use people's criminal histories as justification for their murder or being killed or whatever in these kind of environments, you're doing something very, very dangerous to
Hmm.
believers. If you're a believer, you're really falling victim to, like, man. So what if Paul would have got killed? Like, what if they
Yeah.
would have?
Yeah.
What if the apostle Paul would have got killed as someone who was, it was killing and locking up members of the church? Like, it would be a whole different ball game in
Yeah. I
terms
mean,
of what we understand of our Bibles.
those types of that type of information, being truthful, is useful for developing the narrative which took place.
Yeah,
To investigation. Like, it's
yeah, right,
useful to know that someone who attacked has a criminal record because it speaks to their character. This is something normal for them and what they would have done and how they would have
right,
functioned
yeah.
based upon their criminal record. But it's never helpful to use that to develop an opinion on what occurred. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's helpful to do that because then you're just justifying the death of someone based upon their past, which would be wrong.
Yeah, as Norm said, they're just unredeemable. And I
Yeah.
think that, and we're going to talk about this. This kind of leads us into the theme that we're talking about tonight of stop cherry picking. I don't think this is where when people get offended at me or us for like the stay balanced perspective, they don't realize that the reason why we're trying to stay balanced is because we understand to some degree that our emotions are not just being swayed by the left, but they're being swayed by everyone, right? There's a
Right.
pull on from the right to the left. It's this, they're against each other. And if I think like a political American, right? If I think like an American citizen and not a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, it is going to affect the way I view everything, but most importantly, people made in the image of God, right?
For sure.
I am not going to view people that way. So we're going to talk about this idea of stop cherry picking. People out here. So let me tell you what cherry picking is for those of you who don't know what it is. This ain't when you go up and get some fruit. I'm not against fruit. I eat blueberries and strawberries a couple times a week. In fact, I got some in the car I need to get, but it's cold enough outside that they'll stay cold if I don't get them, because I don't really feel like walking to the car and all of that. That's a different conversation, probably not even helpful to tell y'all that, because you may be judging me that I need to walk to the car and go get them, but it's cold and I'm not going to do that. I like fruit though. So we're
It
not
is
talking
brick
about
outside.
picking cherries from a tree. Cherry picking was a term. I was first introduced to this term in elementary school when we would play basketball, full court basketball.
Yeah,
And what cherry picking was you would never go down and play defense. Like say your team scored or didn't score. Say you didn't score, the team got the rebound and they went down on a fast break. And instead of you running down with your team to stop them from scoring, you would just stop at half court or stay down there. And then once they score, they would take the ball and throw it down to you, and then you score. And they'd be like, man, stop cherry picking, man. Stop cherry. And it meant like you don't go to help out. You only stay, it's selfish. You're basically,
you don't work for it. You don't work for it. You take the easy joint.
It's a selfish.
The low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's more things that you got to do than just what you're doing. That's selfish. It's basically a selfish, self-righteous, all of that, right?
Right.
So we're going to talk about cherry picking. And we're going to talk about them in a couple different ways that we see. I'm going to give you some background to some of these ways in a moment. But the first one, we're going to talk about stop cherry picking, all right? Stop cherry picking what Jesus didn't do, all right? Stop cherry picking what Jesus didn't do. Let me explain what I mean by that. This happens on both sides. It happens all over the place. Even if we target a side more because the examples seem to more stark to us, it's not that it's only one side that goes both ways. But let me say this. In the last few years, I would say the last 3 to 5 years, I've heard this sentiment from a lot of people that say something like this. Well, Jesus didn't come, he didn't free the slaves back then. Rome had a ton of slaves. He did not free the slaves. None of that stuff. And that's usually said to push back against people who think America's a Christian nation, slavery was evil, and that all this stuff, right? Or they'll think of Jesus, they'll describe Jesus, which I wrongly think people will describe Jesus as sort of a social justice warrior or so all this stuff, right? And so the pushback will be, well, Jesus didn't free any slaves back then, right? And it's almost like they're trying to justify why slavery existed, or at least push back against the notion that America shouldn't have had slavery, or a number of different reasons, right? But the idea is that, well, Jesus didn't free the slaves when he came.
So there were waste your time slaves on it.
Yeah, so why are you focusing on slave, all that stuff, right?
Right.
Okay, let's explain why that's cherry picking. Let me tell you why. And Stract, you weigh in here. Here's why that's cherry picking what Jesus didn't do. Because I would agree, first of all, 100% that Jesus did not free slaves in the sense that we understand slavery, right? He also freed you from slavery to sin, right? That was his issue. That was the main thing for him. He didn't free slaves in like Rome who were chained to all that stuff, right? What we would consider slavery, chattel slavery, none of that. He didn't do that. I 100% agree with that. He did not. But that's not all that Jesus didn't do that people do today. Jesus also didn't overthrow the government. And Jesus also didn't command that believers should overthrow the government and oppose the government.
Right.
Now, we know that the book of John says that there were many things that Jesus that are not recorded that he didn't say. But I think we got everything we need to know for life and godliness, right? Otherwise, we would be like, well, God, you didn't tell us that. That's not fair to. No. We got everything we know. Jesus did not say or demonstrate overthrowing the political regime. I brought this up to one brother, and he said, yeah, but he did the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is. Talk to me. That's not what Jesus did. The Sanhedrin was not about politics. Yes, they were in politics 100%. They were connected with Rome and so forth. They were afraid of what Rome would do to them if Jesus was getting out there and doing these things. So that's why that was one of the motivations for killing the Lord. We know that. But the reality is, Jesus, there's not a lot of political stuff that we see. We see Jesus say, look, whose subscription is this? Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's, right?
Right.
We see submit to governing authorities, Romans 13. We see in 1 Peter 2, honor the emperor. Jesus didn't say overthrow politics.
Nah.
He didn't say that. In fact, contrary. Jesus also said, contrary. Mm-hmm. Jesus also said to Pilate, he also said,
my kingdom is not of this earth.
Not of this world.
Not of this
kingdom, and if it were, my servants would fight, right?
Right.
What is that? So when you cherry pick and make the point, oh, well, Jesus didn't end slavery. You are 100% right. Mm-hmm. But he also didn't focus on politics, and he didn't overthrow politics or command believers
That's right.
to overthrow politics and take back the country, take back Israel from Rome. Now, Strack, I know you got something to say to that.
Yeah, be consistent. That's it. I think that's pretty simple. I mean, I think what Jesus didn't do can help guide us to a certain degree, right? Because I think when we look at what Jesus did not do or did not occupy his time with while he was here on earth, we can look and say, okay, this is obviously not priority because Jesus didn't even occupy his time doing this. Now, there's nuances to that. I mean, there's going to be things that need to be prioritized that I don't think Jesus specifically did while he was on earth. Like, Jesus didn't love his wife because Jesus didn't have a physical wife, right? So, but we see his love for his bride exemplified, though, and we see the call for loving his bride. So the greater realities that we have in Christ, like you alluded to, the freedom of the slaves. Jesus didn't free slaves here on earth as it pertains to time on earth, but he freed slaves outside of time. He freed slaves eternally. He freed slaves that were slaves to sin, to wickedness, and made them slaves of righteousness. Mm-hmm. So, and in the same way, Jesus didn't overthrow the government of the time, the Roman rule. He didn't overthrow them, but we know that Jesus overcame the world. So he overcame the world, ultimately setting us free from the trials and tribulations of the world, which we must still face because our faith needs to be tested like gold through fire. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look at it that way. Like, okay, Jesus didn't do this, but he ultimately did this. Right. And so how does that play out in life when we look at life? We look at life from the reality of what's to come eternally and what Jesus has accomplished eternally. And then we deal with the reality of what we're dealing with on a daily basis. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, so is it okay to pull from what Jesus hadn't done? Yes. Just be consistent with it. Don't use it and eisegete and throw in your own desires and your own movements, your own, things that you're hungry about, and say, well, Jesus didn't do that. But my stuff over here, I wouldn't even allude to the fact that Jesus didn't do that, because then you'll realize that I'm being inconsistent. You know what I'm saying? Like, just be consistent, man.
Right. And being consistent essentially just means be faithful, man.
That's right.
Just be faithful. Like, consistency has to do with faithfulness. Just be faithful. Like, I think it's just unfaithfulness to be like, and it's self-righteous even.
It's deceptive.
To make it seem like, it is. It's just like, oh, Jesus didn't do this. There's a ton of stuff Jesus didn't do. Jesus didn't say homeschool.
Right.
Jesus didn't say a ton of stuff that we do as believers, and we act like, when it's convenient, we cherry pick what Jesus did or what Jesus said. I think right now, bro. I think I've said this before about there's this theologically functional theology. I think for many of us in the Reform camp is really pitting Jesus against Paul.
Yeah, it happens even subconsciously at times.
Subconsciously, I think we look to Jesus. We look at what Jesus did, but rarely what Jesus said, and we get our marching orders from what we think what Paul said, right? But Paul got his marching orders from what Jesus said. He spent 3 years in the desert, right?
Right.
Learning getting his gospel from Jesus. So it's not like Paul was just making it up as he goes along. So I think there's a sense where there needs to be again, not that we need to Jesus didn't say like, oh, prioritize what I say over everyone else. This is all of it is scripture, right? It's all breathed out by God. But I think there needs to be a sort of a back to Jesus movement among the church where we don't just are grateful that he died on the cross, but we actually listen to the examples that he gave, because Paul's theology, who many of us, that's where our application mainly comes from, came from Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So Paul's not in disagreement with or changing what Jesus said.
No.
He's expounding on it and giving it a different level of practicality depending on what church was and what they were going through.
Right.
But there's I think it's very common. So we're saying this because we care about non-believers hearing the gospel, but on our show is mostly geared towards probably people who are believers, and we try to bring discernment. So we're gonna have fun. We're gonna do that, but we're trying to basically say, hey, do you see this? Do you see this happening? Like, pay attention to this church. Like, there are people who will use these little, and we're going to give you some examples in a moment. People who will say these things and they talk as if, oh, that's not the Bible. Where does it say it? But the Bible doesn't defend what they're talking about. It doesn't have their talking points. It doesn't. The great picture for Strack and I is Revelation 7. That scene where there's Jesus, it says every tribe, ethnicity, tongue, all of us will be in white robes with palm branches worshiping the Lamb.
Revelation 5, many from all nations.
There will be card-carrying Democrats, card-carrying Republicans, independents. There will be Calvinists, Arminians, a bunch of different people in that scene glorifying God.
Right.
And when we start cherry-picking what Jesus didn't do, then we act like, oh, okay, what the stuff that I believe and stand for is more what he did and stuff. No, it's just not true.
I mean, the most important scene in Revelation is who is worthy to open the scroll.
That's it.
In my opinion, I think so. I mean,
I think it is. I mean, shoot, heaven. John was crying. I mean, it was like, this is crazy.
The Lamb comes out as though slain, and there's 100. The one who's worthy to open the scroll.
100.
I mean, that's that's a praise break moment. You know what I mean? That's it.
That's a moment. You just can't do it. So
word up.
There's much we can more, so we got to keep moving on. So stop cherry picking what Jesus didn't do.
Word up.
Yep, he didn't free the slaves, but he also didn't overthrow the government, nor did he command it. And don't try to give me no crap about, I know the scriptures too, fam. I don't care how popular you are or how long. I know the Bible too. We got the same Bible, maybe a different translation. You're not gonna fool me. No. All right, let's go to the second stop cherry picking. Listen. Stop cherry picking the American dream or cherry picking capitalism. I'm making those one and the same, right? Because the message of the American dream is come here and make money. You can come here with an idea and make money and all this stuff, right? Let's just be honest. The American dream is not like we got better. I mean, maybe we have better drinking water and stuff like that. But what people come here for, people don't come here because their country has a lot of smog and it's clean air here. Mm-hmm. They come here because they can make more money to provide for their families. They get educated.
People come here because of stories like King Richard,
right.
Venus and Serena Williams. That's
100%.
That's what people come here for.
That what you got? What you got? Some executive producer credits on that joint? Boy, you pushing that joint, man.
No, no, no. I'm just it's just on the mind. That's why I just
what
watched it. So
you know what I'm saying? What you on the soundtrack and ain't know
I
about it or
just
something?
watched it. It's on
You
the
know what I'm
mind.
saying?
You know what I'm saying?
They
Like
find out you did the score. They holler at your boy. Let me drop something in there. You know,
I
not
would
even
have
look.
loved to drop some bars on that joint.
That
For
joint would have been
real.
crazy, right? That joint would have been crazy.
That's some
All right, let's
OG.
stop cherry picking capitalism and the American dream. Let me explain what I mean by this. All right, and I see this on both sides, but I'm sorry, the visuals, mentals are coming to me from more one direction, right? So I like to watch Ben Shapiro. I like Ben Shapiro. I think he's entertaining. I think he is intelligent. There's some things that I think he's arrogant, right? All these things, right? But I enjoy people like the arrogant people, intelligent people. I enjoy that. It takes one to know one,
Is
right?
he the Micro Machine guy's son?
He talks like him though. That
He
dude can
might
put a
be.
micro
I'm
machine
just saying,
together.
he might be the Micro Machine guy's
He
son.
might be. That might be how he got started. So you know what I'm saying? So I like watching Ben Shapiro. I'm not I love watching left and right media. I don't think you've lived until you've watched CNN and Fox News describe the same event. Like you have
For
not
sure.
lived
For
until
sure.
you've watched Ben Shapiro and then I'm trying to think of uh, and DL Hughley in them, right? Until you see
Right.
these stark realities, you just haven't lived. So let me give you an example. So here's this narrative right now. I watched a thing with Ben Shapiro recently. And he said this is his thing right now. This is his thing. This is really the everyone's thing, actually. He's one of the purveyors of this. There's this idea that liberal media is controlling racial narratives. Okay. So liberal media that's much more robust than conservative media is controlling racial narratives, making everything about race, essentially. So all the reporting, all of it, they're driving it by race. And he's a fan of that. He talks about media a lot. It is so ironic to me to hear these guys talk about media because you run a media company, Ben Shapiro.
Right.
Benny, Benji, you run a media company. You do not run a synagogue. You do not run a
You
counseling service.
you are
You
the
run
media.
you are media. So when you talk about media, it's like watching people complain about the evils of Twitter on Twitter.
Right.
Remember when last year all these people were like, I'm leaving Twitter, Facebook. I'm going to Parler. This is the platform is not going to tell me all this stuff, right? And then and then a month or two later, them folks are right back.
Mm-hmm.
Now I remember being like, man, Parler was all right, huh? Was it? All that yelling at about Facebook and all that stuff, and you on it, right?
For sure. Right back at it.
So here's the thing, right? And the left does this too. They think the media, the conservative media, is about white supremacy, right? And about creating narratives that
For
constantly
sure.
belittle the black people and they're promoting white supremacy, right? So both of these are cherry picking capitalism, and let me explain why. And then Strack, do you want to take this one? You can explain this one if you want. You want me to just keep going with it? My hands is greasy right now.
Yeah, no, I can run with it. I mean,
Yeah, this
we
is just
so the cherry picking of capitalism is simple. You have people who will be like, yo, but the American dream, the capitalism, we gonna make it. We gonna, the pursuit of happiness, all these things that are attached to the Constitution, that when we look at it, we see the benefits for ourselves as individuals and even our families. So we use them and we proclaim them so that we can continue to do and live and function and even justify our right to do certain things that would normally seem outlandish, like
right.
attack the Capitol, things like that. So, or riot, you know what I mean? Like real rap, like on
Right.
both sides.
Yeah.
So we cherry pick capitalism in that way because if we are true to what the Constitution says, then as Christians, we would have to be contrary to what Scripture says in our
100%,
actions, in
bro.
our thoughts, in our feelings, in our acceptance of others and their own success and their own happiness. So when we look at, for example, just the pursuit of happiness, we have to look across the board and say, okay, what does this mean for us as American citizens? Well, if everyone has the right to the pursuit of happiness, then we have to not just acknowledge someone else's happiness, but applaud and celebrate their
Yep.
happiness as well, because they have the right in America to pursue their happiness. And we
That's what
are
it means to be
not.
an American, right? Yeah.
We are not to get in the way of anyone's pursuit of happiness. It kind of starts throwing things through a loop though when you think about it, because now all of a sudden, if someone's pursuit of happiness is to be a pedophile, then all of a sudden everyone's in an uproar. Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean pursuit of happiness, right? But that's the problem. Because as Christians, if we hail the pursuit of happiness as a freedom or a right that has been given by God, and we uphold that against Scripture, and we still come out thinking the pursuit of happiness is a righteous cause, then whatever happened to suffering much tribulation to enter the kingdom of heaven? You know what I'm saying?
So now you grabbing a couple of ankles. You got people not wanting to try and touch their ankles right now. And
stop cherry picking.
You gotta stop.
Stop cherry picking. See, this is what happens. We get so attached to things that we have been taught to uphold, that when we realize that's not in Scripture, we're now faced with the reality of, do I deny what I have attached to my belief, my faith in Christ, or do I deny my faith in Christ and make a whole other one based on what I know from the Constitution?
100%.
Government.
Yes, you fuse American and biblical morality.
You fuse them together.
And I think the Lord is exposing that, like, look, man, you cannot love God and country.
The pursuit of happiness is opposite the pursuit of holiness.
Yeah, it can be 100%.
Real right.
So let me come from a different angle. That's a serious angle right there. Let me come from a different angle to say the same thing about cherry picking capitalism, right? So let's just say that the liberal media is controlling racial narratives, or the conservative media is trying to drive a certain narrative and perspective. That's 100% true. Here's the problem, though. They're both companies that are trying to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the liberal media would not talk about racial tension if it didn't sell.
That's right.
Like, racial tension in America sells. And let's just be honest. We've said this before, but let's be honest. As it relates to racial dynamics, black versus white is the Lakers versus Celtics of racial dynamics in our country. Yes, there are plenty of other groups that have ethnic hatred, but none of them have the history that black and white do. So whenever that dynamic is at play, money is going to happen as a result of that, right? It's to say that the left or the right are trying to control a racial narrative minimizes the fact that the only reason why they would pursue that narrative is because it makes money. There is every company has shareholders, right? We're don't forget what socioeconomic system we live in. You have to make money or you're out. Right. You will be fired, or your company will not make it. We just came out. We're at the end of sort of a shutdown because of the pandemic. There's a lot of companies that didn't make it out because they weren't able to sustain enough income during that time. By the grace of God, you still got a restaurant. I remember the conversations we were having last summer about transitioning to another venue, something different, right? Something more mobile, all of that, right? Yeah. Because you had to think. You can't. We're a company. Now, don't get me wrong. I bet the problem isn't capitalism. The problem is kind of what Strack said: not understanding how the American dream is connected to capitalism and what people are after. So when you say that they're trying to control racial narratives, it's misleading because the left cares more about green than they do black, and the right cares more about green than they do white, right? But when you make it seem like, oh, they're just trying to control these racial narratives, you're looking too flat. That's flat. No, they would, if there's a reason why Axe body deodorant, right, that body spray, markets itself by, if you use this, you'll get girls, right? Why?
For sure.
Because they know sex sells in America. If you have a show, pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Why? Because sex sells. Mm-hmm. Orgasms sell, right? Sexual pleasure sells. All these things, they sell. It's the same thing in media. They know tension sells. Racial tension sells. And depending on the demographics, it's going to sell. I'm using an analogy that I can't prove because it's a hypothetical point, but I'm just going to say this. If there were boxing, right, and there was a heavyweight boxing match between a German, an undefeated German, and an undefeated Jew, right? That boxing match would be one of the most boxing matches watched in history. Mm-hmm. Simply because there is a history between Jews and Germans, and that boxing match would become something totally different than what it is.
For sure.
Because of the ethnic, racial tension between those two countries, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with black and white. If you can say whatever you want, the left is only trying to make everything racist, and the right only trying to because it makes money for the organizations. The bottom line is green, not black. Because if the media has always been biased because they never show how many poor white people are on welfare. They always make you think it's black people. So again, the media has never not been biased, right? It's always biased. But now it's like, oh, they're trying to listen, everyone is biased because everyone is going to appeal to the people that the shareholders, stockholders, people that they need to make money for, always. And the whistleblower, the Facebook whistleblower, that lady, she said that Facebook knows that it's easier to get people to be angry than it is to get people to be loving. So they have changed the algorithm so that you get inflamed because that's going to draw you back.
For sure.
Watching someone do something good, oh, that's cute. That's not going to draw you back. If it's sex related or violence related or particularly racial tension with black and white, that's going to draw.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's why the Gulf War, being visualized the way it was. It was the first time media was able to live stream and view, that you were able to view a war. That's why it was such a big deal.
That was crazy, right? Yeah, well said.
Yeah. Value. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though it was a black screen with bright green lights that you couldn't really make out everything that was happening, but you watched because it was war playing out. It was battle on a level that you had never seen and could never see unless you put on boots and fatigues and went out there to war. So they gave us that presentation, even in the midst of a climate where many people were against that war. There was mad people against the Gulf War. But I guarantee you that both sides, both for and against the Gulf War, were watching the news and seeing it live.
Yeah. Because that's what they do. And so, again, it's misleading to say that this conservative media or liberal media is trying to either maintain white supremacy or drive racial narratives. No. You know who's at fault? It's our sensibilities. Yeah, it's American sensibilities that want to see these things.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, though, bro, you ever heard a song 1,000 times and you still hate it? Yeah. Like, it's not like someone can make you like a song. They may make you remember it and you end up, but they can't make you like it.
Catchy.
Yeah, they can make it. You hear it enough and you end up singing that joint, but they can't make you like it. Like, can't. MSNBC, CNN, nobody was there when George Floyd got killed. That was a cell phone. So, but they're going to keep showing it. Why? Because they want to be the network that everyone watches.
That's right.
And this is why the Super Bowl, I don't know if it's still this way because the Super Bowl hasn't seemed like this in a while. But there was a point where I remember reading an article years ago. I used to be in advertising. Like, if I wasn't a pastor, I would have loved to be in advertising and marketing for companies, like some advertising firm. I love ideas, and you know that, right? So there was a point where I was getting a part of it. I would get these Ad Age magazine. I would get their online stuff, and they were talking about how expensive Super Bowl commercials were. I think it was like $1 million a second for some companies. I forgot. It was something. It was like, you got to be kidding. It was like ridiculous, bro.
It was nuts. It's always.
It was like $1 million a second for the.
Right.
You know why? Because the majority of the country is watching the Super Bowl, right?
That's right.
Because that's why they would do that. Companies would put their best commercials on the Super Bowl because they knew, hey, this might give us a real boost because 80 million people are watching the Super Bowl. It's the highest watched event in American sports. So the ratings, the marketing what they're going to charge you during that game is going to be way higher. That's the country we live in. So don't talk about how amazing capitalism is and then be offended that people are legally doing things that you disapprove of.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, if you're going to talk about the woke industry, then the woke industry is a capitalistic success.
Yes.
It became a multi-billion-dollar industry. It got corporate endorsement, all of it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't bang with it, but
look, if you wrote a book during this woke social justice thing,
then you're a part of the industry.
Regardless what side you're on, you be 100% fully. Look, Vodi's book is industry. It's
woke industry. It's the woke industry.
Real rap. I mean, that's
it's the woke industry.
And it's
why does my head look really different right now after taking this hat off? Now I look
because it was flattened.
It looks really different taking the hat off.
But you ruining my thought, man.
My bad,
hat
bro.
On.
My bad.
Anyway, let me jump to a different thought that was in my brain.
You said Vodi's book was a part of the woke industry. Stay there.
Yes.
Right.
It's definitely a part of the woke industry. I mean, it's building. It actually, if we were able to look at the U.S. economy in a straight line, you would and then label and identify what things have boosted the economy at certain times. I guarantee you'd find wokeness in that line.
100%.
It has boosted the economy to a certain
100%.
extent
100%.
because people have gained money from it. Like that's look at how much money BLM made. I mean, that's a prime example. You know what I'm saying?
Ibram Kendi and Robin DiAngelo, they get like $150,000 for a 20-minute talk.
Fam,
my G.
And
I might go woke for about a month or two just to make some bread.
The news media has done the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like you honestly, where I was going was you gotta wonder, do we call it the news still or do we call it the gossip? You know what I'm saying? Because gossip is what actually is actually what draws people, right? Gossip is what gets you to be like, oh, I gotta hear the latest, I gotta hear that newest, and that's what's gonna draw ratings. Is they don't care about the truth anymore. It's not truth being reported, it's their view of what happened, their perspective of what occurred, which in reality is nothing more than gossip.
Right, yeah.
And
slander. And slander.
And we love it. We eat it up.
That's what I mean. Like, the issue is our society is so driven towards violence, and we're driven towards sort of taking a stance against certain things. That's what a lot of this is. So don't stop cherry picking capitalism and being offended that people are trying to make capital in ways that you disapprove of.
Right.
It is not illegal to be woke. No. It's not illegal to not be woke. It is not illegal to have a perspective on what's happening in the public. But when you start cherry picking the American dream, you're telling people that they can't do and make money legally in a way that you disagree with. But you can do it though.
That's right.
It's just like, what are you talking about, fam? What are you talking about, fam? So that leads us to our last stop cherry picking. And it's kind of overlaps, but it is a little bit more specific. Stop cherry picking Christian nation and morality. All right, let me. This is a little different, but let me explain what I mean here. So, a couple of days ago, 2 days ago, I put out this thread. It was both on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow me at I'm Curt Kennedy on Twitter, his hype man Stract on Twitter. Follow us there. We are where the action is. Offending people one tweet at a time.
Promoting the joint just cut out.
Look at that. That's what happened. Freeze. The Lord is like, nah, don't promote yourself,
we're still here.
Yeah, it's freeze frame.
I'm still here.
I mean, you here, but your face, but look like you look like you're doing. You got them faces. There go them faces. His fingers over his mouth.
Well, me.
So listen. Yeah.
For a second.
Yeah, just for a second, you was frozen.
It was yours. Your jaw froze up.
Oh, did it? Okay, I was moving. All right, so here we go. I wrote this I said this: when the 10 Commandments and prayer were in schools and abortion was not legal, was American society more like Jesus? Okay, genuine. I was just curious because I've been hearing a lot of this: take back our country from God. We need prayer in the schools and all of this stuff. And I've heard a lot of different discussions, but there was a guy that me and him were talking kind of back and forth. And I think he represented what I've heard a lot of people say. In fact, when I was in the Midwest, there were people that were saying, talking like this. But he said this essentially. I'm not going to read everything verbatim. This is what he said. There was more social cohesion and order based on Christian principles, which I believe means that the society was more like Jesus. This does not mean that the society, that there weren't other issues, societal sins such as Jim Crow, racism, but it does mean that our society was less openly depraved, particularly with regard to sexual sin and social disorder, right?
Huh.
So that was his perspective, and so I responded to that, and then we kind of had a little bit of exchange, and then he said this to me after we went back and forth a little bit. It wasn't anger or nothing. It was a good exchange, right? And he said this: the way I've been thinking about it is, would I rather my children be raised in a society that is openly depraved or one in which is subtly depraved? Many people decry the Bible Belt, but to be honest, I would rather my children be raised in that culture than the godless one we're planting in. Hence Christian schooling, right? So I said, well said, bro. I think my concern comes from seeing missiology as politically induced morality, which has deceived us into thinking that it is more Christ-like. While that morality may be better and more desirable for me and my children, it has actually made people think they are good with God when in eternal reality they are not. And it has made Christians think that the goal is a more moral society, which can mainly be had by the imposition of law, but that didn't work for Israel. It is not true faith, but respectable faith. And respectable faith-based folks will go to hell. And he responded and said this. He said, okay. But he basically said, well, yeah, that's true. They may go to hell, but it's better than the society that we have today, and so forth. And I've heard this discussion a lot. And I realized, and I said, brother, I was thinking, like, depending on who you are, you would have a different perspective. Like, I'll just be honest. I'm not one of those black people that thinks that ain't nothing changed, and whenever there's injustice towards black people, it is identical to Jim Crow and all that. Black people are tripping to think like that. Like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, we black men, there's a reason why I would never go back in time, because I could get caught and whipped, right? That's just the reality. I would never go back in time for that. I don't know what Strack is doing at all right now, but I'm going to keep the party going. So I was like, you know what? Depending on who you are will determine how you view that. So, okay, depending on your personality or who you are, sure, it was godlier back then. But like when they had prayer in schools and the 10 Commandments on buildings and there wasn't legal abortion, they would say the Pledge of Allegiance, they'd pray in schools, and then black people would be hanging from trees, and it would be the newspaper with all the people and their children there celebrating that, right? So it's really a preference of morality. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying, oh, I would love to have the morality of today. Like, oh, I just love the new sexual, ethic, or the social disorder. I totally agree with that. But again, here's my concern. I think a lot of Christians, believers who have a zeal for God, I think a lot of them are wrongly wanting to take back their country so that it's a more moral society where the sins are not as public, but the people are still not saved. You see, morality is not what the gospel's about. We're called to make disciples, not make a good. Listen, if you don't think Satan loves morality, then you don't understand 2 Corinthians 11 about him being an angel of light. And you don't understand the reality that all these false religions are based on morality, being a better person. But what's happening among believers is there's such a longing for a different, safer morality that you're acting as if that's the goal of Christianity. So as this guy said, yeah, they'll go to hell. And he says that like it's nothing. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the goal of Christianity. So even though I don't like the neo-sexual ethic, right, and some of the things that are happening, as a black man, I would much rather deal with what's happening in the culture today than be back when there was no prayer in schools, when there was prayer in schools and all that, because that doesn't make people change, right? It didn't work for Israel, right? Like we know that the reality is you can be a moral person, you can be a good person, right? But then the reality is this: what did Jesus say? These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, right? So the goal has never been about just morality. The goal is about helping people become genuine believers in the Lord. And I think that's what's missing in many ways from a lot of the cultural dynamics. That's what's missing. So what you have is a bunch of Christians who want morality, and they're cherry picking. Oh, I hate this, I hate that. But in reality, this country was not more godlier back when there was prayer in schools, there was no abortion, and the Ten Commandments were up on buildings. That's the concern that I have. And I think we've gotten to a point where we treat the world like they're disobedient believers that need the law imposed, rather than Jesus said, make disciples, not change laws. If the laws never change, then they never change. If they get worse, then they get worse, but we still got to be faithful in the midst of all of it. So for me, this idea of, cherry picking morality and cherry picking the Christian nation, I think it's just a facade. And I think a lot of believers have just lost their sensibilities to this. I think they've lost their sensibilities.
Yeah, I agree.
Welcome back, brother. So I don't know what happened. Now, I want to say another reason why this is a big deal, okay? And let me tell you why I think believers get sort of hoodwinked into thinking that a moral society is better. One of the ways that we fail in this area is, and this tweet will help you understand, there was a very popular believer who's known, if I said his name, many of you know who he was. He put this out in a tweet. This was his tweet. He said, volume and regional distribution of the transatlantic slave trade from 1525 to 1866. The source was the Oxford Handbook of Slavery in the Americas, page 263, paperback. So he wants you to know where it is. And it says this: Portugal, Brazil, 46.7% slavery. Britain, 26.1%. France, 11%. Spain, 8.4%. Netherlands, 4.4%. U.S., 2.4%. Baltic states, 0.9%. Right? And his point in putting this up was to show that America has a relatively low slavery rate compared to all these other nations. But you have all these people that are still up in arms that America owns slaves. But that's his point. I responded and I said this: any of those countries claim Christ and use the Bible to justify the atrocities of chattel slavery? Did any of them go to war with another country to get their independence only to deny millions of others theirs? This whole thing is way more complicated than those stats, right? And I've seen this a lot. This happened in the debate with Voli that I had, and some other places I've seen this a lot. There is a comparison of the sins of America, particularly with slavery, to the sins of other nations. And then we latch on the fact that these other nations had slavery or were treated their slaves worse than we did in America, right? And that's supposed to be like, so we're overreacting to it. But what these guys often miss is that America separated itself as a nation by its allegiance to Christ, not just by its ability to produce cotton. That was an economic issue, but it separated itself by its allegiance to Christ. And you can't cherry pick how you treat other people when it says God covered the bounds, love your neighbor and love your brother. You got to do both. So you have this comparison to other nations that makes us think, oh, we're better than them, than what they did. But some of these nations don't claim Christ at all. God is not in their founding documents, none of it, right? And if you think about comparing yourself to other people in the Bible, that just doesn't bode real well.
Nah.
So let me give you a couple of examples of people comparing themselves, believers, and this and that. Luke 18, 9 through 14. It's the parable. Here's what Jesus said. He told this parable to Some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and looked down on everyone, right? And Jesus, you know this one, it's the tax collector and the Pharisee, right? Jesus, the Pharisee comes in, compares himself in his prayer. Here's what he prays to the Lord. He says, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, greedy, unrighteous, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of everything, but the tax collector. So he's comparing himself to the tax collector, and Jesus said, who went home justified? It wasn't the Pharisee. When we say, oh, look at what these other nations didn't do, we're the Pharisee in this scenario. The tax collector was like, he said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It said that he wouldn't even look up because he was aware of his sinfulness. That's how America needs to be. That's the posture that a Christian nation or Christians in the nation should have. When you compare yourself to other people, you're always better. When you compare yourself to Christ, you always recognize, okay,
That's a fact.
here's where I fall short. But these guys don't. I'm telling you, don't let them fool you. They'll make up these statements as if, oh, when we compare ourselves to sub-Saharan Africa, then yeah, we're way. Of course, what are Americans complaining about? But like you complain about your experience, you don't complain. You don't compare your experience to other people. Another time where you saw this comparison fall short was in Luke 13, the Tower of Siloam. They were like, well, hey, this tower fell, and then these people, Pilate took these people's blood and mixed it. Were they worse sinners? And Jesus said, what difference does that make? If you don't believe, you're going to perish regardless. Like, don't think because the building fell on these people that they were worse sinners than you dying in your sleep. Like, don't compare the tragedies of people and come away with some type of justifying position.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of these people do. They'll make these statements comparing America to other nations and acting like that would be like saying, listen, the rape stat is like really low, like 1 out of every 30 women or something, maybe high. I don't even know exactly what it is. Will may be assaulted. You don't say, hey, there's just only a 2.8% chance that you'll be assaulted to dismiss your wife's concerns about not wanting to walk down the street at night. Right? You just wouldn't do that. It was just like, no, because it's a possibility. You say like, hey, I'll walk. Don't walk. I'm coming to pick you up. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you walking. Because it's a possibility. My sons, when I flew to Chicago, and my oldest son, he was worried. He was like, Poppy, I just don't want anything to happen to you on the plane. And I said, son, listen, I can't predict that nothing will happen, but let me say this. Every day there are probably 10,000 planes that are in the air flying from one place to the next. I said, how often do we hear of a plane crashing? He was like, yeah, almost never. I said, yeah, there are more car accidents than there are plane crashes. Now, God in his sovereignty keeps all these planes afloat. I said, as a matter of fact, big boy, I don't even remember a whole sports team dying on like a plane, like all the travel that people do. So I'm not saying that something can't happen. I'm just saying there's a higher possibility that, but for my son, it was like, I still don't want anything to happen to you, right? So that's the reality. You have to be worried about people, not worried about, but be aware of people who are cherry picking these types of things by comparing American morality to other nations. No. We compare ourselves to Scripture. It doesn't work like that. And that's what and ironically, Jesus did compare religious people to non-religious in the Good Samaritan story, right? He had the Levite and the priest didn't help the dude, but the Samaritan did, right? Yeah. So when Jesus contrasted the people who were really mature, who know the law, they didn't love their neighbor, but the ungodly Samaritan did. And Jesus said, be like the ungodly Samaritan. And I'm not saying be ungodly. What I'm saying is stop cherry picking morality by comparing what America has done to other nations. It's not a good look. We compare ourselves to what God has done and what God commands, and that's how we understand how we live and who we are. I'm not comparing myself to other people because I'll let myself off the hook. Scripture's the mirror.
It's easy to justify when we do that.
100%. And it's easy to minimize. So what this guy's tweet was intended to do is to basically say, people are just complaining about the effects of slavery and that America has slaves. Look at all these other countries. But first of all, we didn't grow up in those countries. I grew up here. Two, those countries, as far as I know, didn't make Christ crucified the foundation. You got to remember, when America started, it was Reformed theology. Cotton Mather and John Cotton and other guys were Reformed. When slavery came in, it was based on the Reformed theology, which is supposed to be sound doctrine, right? So again, there's a lot that we could say. I think the point that we're making is there's a lot of cherry picking going on. And they want you, and it's just always more complicated than that. It's always more complicated than that. Don't allow yourself. I don't care what position you have. I don't care if you're conservative. I'm not telling you to change sides or nothing. I'm just saying be wise. And you're listening. Make Christ and the morality that is clearly described in the Bible, and by that I mean the fruits of the spirit and stuff like that. That's stuff.
I mean, Scripture says, "Be wise as serpent and as wise as serpents and harmless as doves."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He's sending us out amongst wolves, so we should not be out here biting people. You know what I mean? Like, we're not supposed to be, as harmless as serpents. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on.
Yeah.
That just don't make no sense. So,
no, it's just foolish. And I think a lot of people want us to just like agree with them. And it's like, nah, stand back and let me say, hey, wait a minute. Is this biblical? Where is this? Like, and if everyone's comparing themselves to someone else, that's not of the Lord.
Right.
That's not of the Lord. Like, I'm not going to say there's a lot of good things. Look, I love America. I love my country. Sometimes people act like, man, listen, I'm married, bro. I don't agree with everything my wife says. I love my kid. There's no one who loves my 3 sons, humanly speaking, more than me. No one. No one loves my sons more than me. And those boys, I love those boys. Those are my dudes. But I had to discipline my youngest today because he didn't listen. I don't agree with everything. So it's like you act like if you critique America, if you critique it, then somehow you're faking. And it's like, Frank, get out of here, man. Man, hush your whole mouth up. Hush it up. You're not using it right now in a good way. So all I just say, listen, there's a lot of cherry picking going on. Discernment suggests, I don't care who your favorite theologian is. I'm not saying don't like them, don't listen to them, but just be careful how much you give yourself over to how they apply the scriptures. Be careful and make sure that the application of the scripture, not the interpretation. This is where people get this is a whole different episode, Strack. I ain't gonna go into this too much. You was in school, you know. Pay attention to the application. This is gonna be an episode. Pay attention. We actually did this last season. We talked about the application versus the information, but pay attention to the application you hear people talking about, because you get deceived by their interpretation. A lot of people, there's a lot of understand doctrinally solid theology, immature or non-Christian people out there. Like this is why, and let me prove this. I'm gonna end with this. I'm gonna prove this biblically. In Matthew 23, this blows me away every time. I think it's verse 3, Matthew 23. Jesus says this: the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat.
Right. So
observe what they say, observe what they tell you, listen to what they tell you, but don't imitate what they do, right? So here Jesus has spent 3 years of his earthly ministry that we see in the Gospels crushing these dudes, saying he's calling them out for hypocrites, all of it. And he still says, still listen to what they say. They still interpret things of God right, but don't imitate what they do. Don't apply the Bible the way that they do it, because it's unbiblical to do that. And your righteousness must exceed that of the Pharisees to get to heaven. So understand that. So people will get you because they have a good interpretation of the Bible, but their application is horrible. The American church, the Western church, had some sound doctrine, right? They call it orthodoxy, but they had a lot of unsound orthopraxy, right? The way they applied it. That's the issue. People will sell you on interpretation, but then they'll get you on application. And then you'll end up following what they do and not even be able to understand why you're so angry, bitter, judgmental, or have no desire for people to be saved, but you want your country to go back to being like calm, quiet, and get out of here, man.
Mm.
It's crazy, fam. Crazy. So listen, man, it's turkey. It's pre-turkey Eve. We ain't gonna hold
Yes.
y'all. We appreciate y'all listening. Don't forget, man, go to Curt Kennedy's Corner on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. We are 114 as of right now. We want to get to be the 116, the Neo 116 crew, and then we want to get to 1,016 and 100,016 and 1,016 subs. Right? We can't do that unless you subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Grateful for you guys. Thank you. We know we came on a little bit later than we normally do. We usually come on around 6:30. We came on a little 8:30, so I know some people are already watching movies and doing their thing. But you can go back and check it out. Those of you who are day ones, man, the people who listen to us on the podcast, thank you. We would love to have you, if possible. You come over and watch us on YouTube, or even just subscribe to the channel. Even if you're not a big YouTube, go to Curt Kennedy's Corner, subscribe to the channel, just so that you can help us continue to support us by doing what we do. We really want to reach a different audience in this genre because we feel like we've had such a great time doing it on the podcast, audio side of things. All right.
Come on already.
So we appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We're looking forward to doing some stuff with y'all. We got some other crazy episodes coming up, new music coming out, all the trimmings, all of the Merry New Year. All of that being said, I'm Curt Kennedy. He's Stract the Wolverine. And we are out of here, y'all. Grace and peace. All of this smoke. I want that